Opening credits. Ava and Carol Detective Agency. The Mystery of Solomon's Ring. Chapter 9. Never underestimate a quarter. The girls raced up the Piazza Ognissanti, the gray stones beneath them practically rumbling as they left small earthquakes in their wake. The wind picked up, and Ava's hair whipped around her face, twisting the strands and making them rough. She had a strange feeling of déjà vu and realized, around 24 hours beforehand, they were being chased through the same piazza by the same kind of people. Oh, man. "Remind me," puffed Ava, "to tell you about a training idea for our track team. It involves dangerous and angry criminals." "I think I already know what you have in mind," laughed Carol. "Do you think they were in the cathedral? Or do you think they just spotted us leaving?" "I think they were watching us," said Carol, as the girls slowed to a walk as they approached their hotel. "I think they followed us to the cathedral, but they didn't approach us because they wanted to see what we were up to." "Oh," nodded Ava. "Like they thought we might know something, and when they saw us with the statue?" "And the copper tube, they came after us." As the girls turned the corner toward the hotel's entrance, Carol grabbed Ava's arm. "Not again," moaned Ava. Sitting on the bench was a man smoking, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit. He had a hat on top of his shiny greased hair, and a cigarette that dangled from his lips like a bird with a worm. They watched him touch his ear and then nod to no one they could see. "He's here for us," muttered Ava. "He has to be watching to see if we come back to the hotel, and he looks like the others." She rolled her eyes. "It's like those first two kidnappers just kept giving birth to more and more bad guys." "We have to find another way inside, and I don't think we can use any fire extinguisher tricks this time around." "I could use it to put out his cigarette," winked Ava. "Don't these guys know it's bad for their health?" "Come on," nudged Carol. "There's got to be an entrance in the back." As they circled around, Ava could see a large truck parked at the delivery bay. The smell of bread wafted their way, and the two inhaled together, breathing in deep. It smelled delicious. "Okay, I think we could get into the hotel if we use their help," Ava said, pointing at the truck. The girls crept closer to the truck, watching as two workers transferred bread into the hotel via a huge metal ramp. Each box of freshly baked bread was heaved up and placed on a hand pallet truck, where a worker then rolled up the ramp through a doorway. Carol caught on and quickly stepped onto the ramp after the last worker headed through the doorway. Ava followed her, looking warily behind them as she went. The room was filled with barrels of olive oil stacked against the right wall, linens on a set of shelves, and other hotel supplies organized around the room. "If we weren't being chased, I could literally eat this room," Carol whispered. Ava watched as the delivery men ducked through a makeshift door that looked a lot like a heavy leather drape with a plastic rectangular window. The girls crouched next to each other behind several barrels of olive oil, waiting for the delivery drivers to leave. A couple of minutes later, they heard voices, and then, one by one, the drivers pushed their hand trucks through the door and down the ramps. Carol peered through the window and gave Ava a thumbs up. "One more second," Carol whispered. Ava nodded. From where she could peek over the barrel, she saw one of the men walk to the delivery truck, waving at another worker and shouting something friendly in Italian. The man shouted back, laughing with ease. The third waved goodbye as the remaining workers went down the ramp. The girls could see him push a button on the wall. A metal door,
which looked a lot like Carol's parents' garage door, began sliding down on the back of the truck, closing off its opening. The last man, satisfied, walked through the room and then exited through the hanging leather door, the sound of his heavy boots disappearing with him.
"That took forever," said Ava, peeking her head farther up. "Think it's clear?" "I think so," said Carol, standing up. "Whatever's through that door will probably get us into the hotel."
The girls moved cautiously through the door. To their right was a hallway, with a dark blue arrow painted on the wall that said Cucina.
"Kitchen,"
said Carol aloud.
"Sounds like the best way to sneak back into the hotel," whispered Ava.
The girls walked down the hall until they reached the double doors marked Cucina. Ava pushed through and was instantly affronted with a mixture of people yelling and scurrying about. People dressed in chef uniforms with tall, mushroom-shaped hats on their heads handed each other pots and pans, and orders were shouted left and right. It was an organized mess of chaos, with full meals appearing on plates like magic as they were passed to the back of the busy room. A woman who looked to be in her mid-30s, with pale blonde hair and light green eyes, was brusquely walking to her station when she spotted the girls. She stopped, her hawk gaze studying the two, flicking between one and the other. "American?" she inquired, putting her hands on her hips.
"How did you know?"
asked Ava.
"Because you are staring at my staff like they are aliens, and you are not supposed to be in here. What are you doing?" she asked, severe annoyance clear in her eyes.
"We're lost," volunteered Carol.
Ava nodded. "We don't know how we got here. Could you tell us how we could get back to the lobby?"
The woman sputtered.
"Ragazze schiocce!"
She pointed a finger to a bright red exit sign far on the other side of the kitchen.
"Get out of here immediately. We do not have time for your little games."
In a flash, Ava recalled how terrifying Mrs. Coppola had been the night they first met her. This woman reminded her of Mrs. Coppola too well. Maybe her daughter? Without a second to lose, the girls scrambled through the kitchen, rushing around the chefs and different stations to get to the exit sign. As they pushed through the doors, they immediately faced another pair of double doors. These appeared more ornate, with a small window built into the door. Carol went on her tiptoes to look through.
"These go to the lobby,"
Carol stated. She looked back at Ava.
"Take a look."
Ava got on her tiptoes. Within seconds, though, she groaned.
"We're still in trouble. Rossi's sitting on the middle couch, pretending to read a newspaper. See him? What's with these guys and newspapers? Haven't they heard of the internet?"
Carol shrugged and gave an "I have no idea" expression.
"So what do we do? We can't go back through the kitchen."
Ava smudged her face against the window, looking left and right across the hotel lobby.
"We have to get to the stairs." "How are we supposed to get to the stairs with that guy sitting there?"
Ava pointed.
"There, we could use that."
Carol squeezed in beside Ava and looked through the window. Her eyes followed the direction of Ava's finger. There was a huge cart, half filled with luggage, parked about 10 feet away. Carol glanced at Ava.
"The luggage cart?"
Ava nodded.
"Yeah, single file, and our first stop is that giant fake plant. We can hide behind that, and then when we're sure the coast is clear, jet over to the cart."
Ava paused momentarily.
"Want to go first, or should I?"
"Are you sure this is a good idea? I mean,
you climbed on top of an ancient statue in a cathedral."
"Point taken,"
agreed Carol.
"But you go first."
Ava pushed the door open slightly, just enough for the two to slip through. She immediately dropped to the floor and began army crawling to the plant.
Why not just leap out the door and do a cartwheel and a bunch of ninja rolls?
Hissed Carol when they were safely behind the plant.
What do you mean?
Asked Ava, mystified by Carol's remark.
Don't you think if anyone had seen us, it would have been much more suspicious to see two kids laying on their bellies, slithering across the floor like human snakes and hiding behind a plant?
Ah, but that's why you're Watson and I'm Sherlock. You think with intellect and reasoning. I think with my gut. Plus, you proved my point. No one saw us, so my plan worked.
Carol shook her head and moaned.
We'll have a conversation about reality later.
Ava ignored Carol's last comment. She carefully poked a finger through the leaves of the plant, slowly parting them so she could see Rossi.
I have a plan to distract him,
whispered Ava. She reached in her jeans pocket and pulled out a quarter.
If I could just hurl this far enough for it to make a loud noise, we could take off in the other direction while he's distracted.
If you're going to distract him, try to aim for the wall closest to his head,
volunteered Carol. Ava nodded.
Good idea.
Ava breathed in and out, focusing her concentration. When she was sure Rossi was looking away, she stood and whipped the quarter toward him. She watched as the quarter flew through the air, and then with a thwack, smacked him on the side of the head.
Oh God, oh God, oh God.
Ava dropped quickly to the ground behind the plant.
Hey!
Yelled Rossi sharply, jumping to his feet, looking around the lobby. Carol looked at Ava in disbelief.
I thought you were going to distract him, not hit him in the head,
she yelled, whispered. The man circled around the couch before looking up at the ceiling and rubbing his head. He looked back down and paused. Bending, he picked up the quarter and held it in front of his face, turning it over carefully. An American quarter, Montana on one side, an eagle on the other. He touched his ear, and the man outside stood up and walked into the lobby.
Perfect,
sighed Carol.
Now we're really dead? There's two of them.
Nope,
said Ava, clenching her jaw.
I have an idea.
No. Your ideas are going to land us in Italian prison,
Carol exclaimed quietly.
Trust me, whispered Ava. I was just a little off.
Before Carol could say anything, Ava quickly stood and whipped out another quarter. They said nothing as it sailed through the air, this time missing the men, but striking a large blue vase filled with flowers on a pedestal. The quarter struck the thin glass, shattering it, and both men dove to the floor. Ava nodded proudly.
Bullseye.
She had made a gunshot. Carol's eyes flew open, and Ava grabbed her wrist, pulling her up as they bolted to the luggage cart.
Okay, not exactly as I planned, but effective, right?
Asked Ava once they were hidden again.
Ask me again if we make it out alive.
Carol watched in horror as a hotel staffer scurried over to the two men, and they all began looking around. The bellhop was speaking into a walkie-talkie. The girls were sure he was calling security.
Follow me,
whispered Ava urgently. Ever so slowly, she started pushing the luggage cart to the doorway on the other side of the room, aiming for the sign that read stairs. The girls weren't sure if it was the slow squeak, squeak as the wheels turned, or the cart that magically began moving by itself, but the bellhop and the two men suddenly froze and turned toward the luggage cart.
Ava?
Said Carol slowly, getting more and more anxious as the men turned and began quickly walking toward them.
Now!
Ava yanked open the door and began sprinting up the steps. Scrambling to keep up, Carol leapt up the steps 2 at a time. As they ran, she looked at her best friend.
You may want to actually tell me your plans if you want them to work.
Sorry, but look, first floor. They didn't pause for a millisecond, hurrying up the stairs. The girls raced up the steps, using the handrails to whip them around each other.
5th floor. We're almost there,
Ava cried out. She could hear the footsteps of the chasing men pounding on the staircase below them. In full sprint, Ava burst through the doors and whipped out a room key. They flew through the hall, passing a table with a huge bowl filled with beautifully colored glass marbles, all blue and pink. On a whim, Carol smacked her hand against the bowl, flipping it over. The hallway filled with hundreds of shiny glass marbles, rolling on the carpet with dull pings. Just as they rounded the corner, the girls heard loud, "Oof! Oof!" The bad guys landed heavily on the balls, falling over themselves.
Nice going,
Ava said to Carol. With another burst of speed, the girls made it to their door, swiped the card, and jumped inside the room.
Shh, wait,
Carol whispered as she held the door shut. Sure enough, they heard the men pound past, shouting Italian at each other. While quietly locking it and pulling the chain across, Carol let out a long breath. Ava leaned her shoulder against the wall, running her fingers through her hair. They stared at each other, panting.
I think the bad guys are falling for us,
laughed Ava.
What?
Asked Carol, bewildered.
Oh, the balls. Funny,
she snorted. The girls fist bumped. They had made it.
If you're enjoying Thomas Lockhaven's audiobook content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way to help out the channel.